All right, we're gonna let Karen. Oh, Karen, there you are. You're on now. Oh, good. Okay. Welcome everybody tonight. Building equity in the community, and my name is Kenneth Murdoch. I am the acting director for diversity, equity, and inclusion. And Karen, would you like to introduce yourself?
Good evening. I have two roles tonight. I'm the Director of Administration for St. Louis County, and I'm also Chair of the St. Louis County Human Relations Commission. And glad that the Commission is a partner with the Office of Diversity and the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion team for these equity listening sessions.
Tonight will be a really simple process. We will be calling on people, and you'll have 5 minutes to speak on what you feel builds equity in the community. In a second, we will start with Dr. Page, but Karen, let's start the meeting off with the Pledge of Allegiance.
Flag over here. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you.
Thank you
Good
all.
evening, Dr. Page.
Hi, good evening. I really appreciate the Human Relations Commission and the Office of Diversity and Equity and Inclusion for putting together this event tonight. From day one, equity has been the centerpiece of every policy decision that we've made. And that's been true throughout the pandemic as testing and vaccinations became available to St. Louis County. We made sure that we deployed them in part of our community that was hit the hardest by the pandemic, and that was, of course, in North County. Our Chief Diversity Officer, Vita Jeffrey, has worked closely with the County Council and the MWBE program to make sure that that program is working and the program was effective in creating the job opportunities that it was intended to create. And I've asked the Department of Health to provide a comprehensive overview of the health inequities in the county and recommend solutions to address these barriers. I'm glad that I could be here tonight. My job is to listen, and I really appreciate being a part of this important discussion. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Page. And part of my role as Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion is to tell people to have a more inclusive society. Everyone should get vaccinated. And for right now, we're still wearing masks. So thank you, Dr. Page, for everything you do. All right. Our second speaker tonight is going to be Ethel Bindum. Ethel?
Good evening, all. Good evening, Kenny, Dr. Page. Thank you so much. And I thank you for your invitation to let me be a part of this tonight. I guess I should just introduce myself. I'm Ethel Bindum. I currently serve as the Director of the Office of Community Engagement. And at one time, I also served as the Diversity Program Manager and the 2020 Census St. Louis County Coordinator. So I've had a plethora of duties that I have been able to partake of in being a part of St. Louis County. Kenny, I don't know where you want me to go. Just introductions right now. Is that what we're
Just tell
doing?
people
Or
what your office kind of. Well, people need to know Ethel's office is very much in the community. So just tell a little bit about some of the events you do.
Okay. Well, I guess I'd like to talk about the purpose or mission, whichever one we want to say, as to what the Office of Community Engagement does. We are the bridge to St. Louis County. We serve as a bridge for St. Louis County residents to government. And we also educate them as to what their government does or can do for them. You'll be surprised how many tax-paying residents are just not aware of all services that are available to them. And those are some of the things that we do. And then from there, we try to increase services to those residents, especially in, as Dr. Page even mentioned, underserved communities. We try to do a lot of outreach just for events. One of the things that it may not seem like as much, but we work with the APA, with the Animal Protection Agency, and we provide free vaccination, chips, shots and services for their animals to try to keep them healthy in Castle Point, the Castle Point, Moline Acre areas. We've done that for 3 years. So that's just the synopsis, but it's bringing people into government to let them know how we can be of service to them as St. Louis County residents.
Thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
Could I just ask a quick follow-up, if I may? I've been in the habit in these sessions of barging in and asking whatever question I happen to feel like. But I
Okay.
want to follow up on the equity piece. How could you see your office working collaboratively with the Office of Diversity on an equity lens relative to community engagement? Or do you see it already happening?
It's already happening.
Okay, can
I
you share a
think
little
that-
bit for us on that, please?
Well, I mean, we've been in with the office in regard to, say, the programs, the lunch and learns, the informative events that they have. So we are definitely in partnership and a big supporter, as a matter of fact, of that office. I've been around in St. Louis County government enough to have participated in some of the beginning steps of the DEI being formed. Again, I served as the diversity program manager, and all of that intertwined. So we're happy to be on board with DEI. I think that you really can't separate the two. You know, if we're talking about outreach for diversity and for equity and inclusion, when community engagement does their outreach, we're kind of doing the diversity, equity, and inclusion part at the same time. So I think that's how it all works together.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
We should also say that county government is always listening to those people who are not speakers tonight, but we're always listening to the community. And we do have a 311 service where citizens from the county can call and give some information to government, because we do listen to the community. Our next speaker on building equity is Liz Warren. Liz, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Hi.
Hi, Liz. Please, the floor is yours.
Okay, is this the time to give my little spiel?
Give your little
Or just
spiel. Tell us a little
introduce?
about who you are and what you feel equity could be built in the community.
Yeah. So hi everybody. My name is Lizzie Warner. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm a program manager for Immigrant Home English Learning Program, as well as the chair of the Language Access Committee for a St. Louis coalition called the Immigrant Service Providers Network. And that committee focuses on language justice issues in the St. Louis area. And that's why I'm here tonight. So just to give you a little bit of background, my organization, we have 247 students currently who are working with a teacher in our program. And in St. Louis County alone, we have students from over 35 countries. So Afghanistan to the DRC, Senegal, Uzbekistan, they're from all over. And even though our program is small and it makes up a small fraction of the immigrants in the area, it just shows you how diverse the immigrant population in St. Louis is. And when you look more at the economic impact of those immigrants, the American Immigration Council gives us some insight as to what these immigrants are doing for our communities. So about 4% of Missouri's population are immigrants, and nearly 5% of the labor force are immigrants. They offer over $4 billion in spending power and spend over $517 million in state and local taxes. So these are taxes that go to our roads and our schools that we all contribute to as well. So we're all working together for a better Missouri. And even though these immigrants are contributing to our city and our state, we're not serving them as much as we should. Some of you may know, and some of you may not know, that Title VI of the Civil Rights Act requires that agencies who receive federal funding provide meaningful language access for their communications and their services. And that means interpretation and translation should be provided. And St. Louis County currently does not have a language access plan. And so this is a big issue, not just because it's a legal issue, but because so many people can't access the resources that they need. And if we want to continue to bring people here to contribute to our city and our state, then we need these resources. So one example of this, if you call these state-funded lines, it's often difficult to get an interpreter on the phone. So my colleagues and I on this committee have been actively testing the phone system, the phone tree. Oh, sorry. My goodness. It's calling after hours on my work line. And so one example, one of my colleagues called the Family Support Division, and she chose 2 for Spanish, which is an option on the automated system. But the automated system told her in English that they could not answer her call because of extended wait times. And another called the St. Louis County Court line and tried to ask for an interpreter, and they told her they didn't know how to connect her to one. So sometimes these are small issues, but sometimes it's needing an interpreter for your domestic violence hearing. And sometimes it's getting information translated during a global pandemic when there's misinformation and so much fear and scary things happening. And so we really need a language access plan in St. Louis City. It affects so many people on a day-to-day level. And that means having that plan in place, training county employees how to utilize interpreters, getting important documents translated so that people can utilize those materials. So I want to encourage everybody to be thinking about that and putting pressure where we can to get a language access plan in place and used in St. Louis County so that everybody has access to these resources.
If I could follow up, Lizzie, I'm hearing what you say carefully because the customer service folks are under my oversight now. What city or county, what institution is delivering what you consider to be? Because we're talking about this, and I am aware of the variety of cultural backgrounds and nationalities, and it's spectacularly broad. That's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
It's also a staffing problem to have. And I think I'm more sensitive to your emergency situations almost because if we had time on the things that were sort of more routine business, we could structure that differently. Where do you think it's being done well?
Yeah, I don't think in many places, unfortunately. This is one of those pieces of civil rights that isn't, I mean, there's a lot of pieces of that, right, that are not enforced much, that need to be worked on. But this is one that's lacking. St. Louis City actually just last month finalized their language access plan. They did not have one before either, and they're implementing that now. And they actually partnered with an organization that does interpretation and translation services. So, cities that are a little bigger than St. Louis, some cities have a little bit of a more cohesive system in that sense. But it's just not something that's done well in very many places, unfortunately. And it's something that a lot of people don't know they're even supposed to provide.
How important is the technology piece to those efficiencies?
Very important, yeah. And unfortunately, like for a lot of our students, access to technology or technology literacy is like another issue in and of itself. But for calling people, even if they have a phone, if they're calling a department, a county department, then that person should at least be able to connect them to what they need to do. I think that would be, on the county's end, whereas the person on the phone is just the additional line.
Lizzie, I have a question for you. Where would we start with the language action plan, in your opinion? Like, where we get the rubber hit the road? Is it coordinating different providers of services and making sure all of them are trained somewhat? Is it making sure that we have proper translators and our translators are certified? Where do we kind of start a plan, and how do we get that moving?
Yeah, I think having highly utilized or like often sought out documents, so documents that people in the county, go to often, having them translated in a variety of languages is good. An example somebody was talking about today was like, we're all getting our property tax documents in the mail, and if that's in English, then you don't know what it is. There's no language on there to say, if you speak another language, call this line or put this in your phone and it can get translated. So those really important documents that are used regularly, getting those translated is really helpful. And then the other piece is, and this is just something that, again, that the city is doing that seems to have started out well. It did just start, but they trained all their department heads. They have a contract with an organization called All Access Interpreters, excuse me. And they are just getting their departments trained on how to get those interpreters on the line. And I think those two pieces are really important.
Liz,
Thank you.
this is Ethel Bindum. I know that during the beginning of the pandemic, we scrambled but had many conversations in regard to language access, et cetera, with many groups. And of course, we tried to work, St. Louis County tried to work with the International Institute, other small organizations, Sal Valdez, and a number of Mosaic, and just trying to make sure that we did something to try to get through that. And so it began to be addressed then, actually, about what was needed in St. Louis County. And as I understood it, that the Google translator just didn't quite help much. So
yeah, and in a pinch, it can sometimes do it for a really simple message, but it's
okay,
definitely not a tool that should be relied on.
okay, thank you.
Any more questions from the committee or from Karen?
No, thank you. I think we are going to, I mean, we have been talking about this. I think there's also been some serious progress on the document side of things through our procurement division, which is dealing a lot in contracts. And because there is an effort in that MWBE space to want to do outreach to a whole variety of potential different vendors to the county, that's another place where language is coming in. So there's it's going to be a both and. The way I see it, I think the structure is going to be important. I think there are really wonderful partners in this town to do that with, though. I'm not concerned about the partnerships.
Yeah, there's some wonderful organizations.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much for that.
Thank you all.
All right, our next speaker, I don't think, is Langford Cunningham on right now? We'll come back to Mr.
Yes, he's
Cunningham.
on. He's on. I'm going to mute. I'm going to let him speak through my system.
Okay.
Yes, how you doing?
Doing okay, Mr. Cunningham. Go ahead and
Can you hear me?
yes, we can hear you.
Okay, yes, my name is Langford Cunningham. I have a nonprofit that is called Redemption Academy. Failure is the back door to success. Out of Redemption Academy, Nine City, the podcast was born. My name is
I'm
Langford
sorry,
Cunningham.
Ken,
I'm a
it's
former
very,
employee.
can you start over? It's very sparse.
15 years. I lost my eyesight 2 years ago. Once I lost my eyesight and I couldn't go back to work.
There's feedback.
Yeah.
Trying to redirect their lives once they get juvenile detention to try to get their life, to claim their life back in these streets. When I lost my sight, I thought everything was over. Couldn't go
Theda,
back to work. I was placed on
can you help
discipline,
restructure the call, Theda? It's very
and I
difficult
tried
to
to
hear.
kill myself. I tried to kill myself.
Can you hear him now?
Not really
we
well.
can't hear.
There's a lot of feedback and it's garbled.
I tell you
Okay,
what we'll
let me
do
try
with
this
Mr.
again.
Langford's case. We can go DI. We can go film him personally if he can't connect tonight, and make sure that his input is. And also along those notes, if anyone in the community who's watching this has someone they know that would be a good speaker, they can always submit a 5-minute video to our
They
email,
said they couldn't hear you.
the equity plan at stlouiscountymo.gov. That is the equity plan at stlouiscountymo.gov. If you submit that 5-minute video to that email, or even a written letter to that email, it will be considered and read by the committee and ourselves as we process and put things towards the equity report. So we will try and check back with Mr. Langford, but if not, we will go get his testimony and his experience on film for the equity plan later. So moving on to other panelists that are directly here, Pastor Ken and Beverly, Pastor Beverly Jenkins and Ken Jenkins. Are you there?
Here we
I
are.
think yeah, there you go. All right.
Yeah, we're trying to get the you took the audio away. I don't know how to get
There,
it.
you're all, we hear you fine now.
You can hear us?
Oh,
Yes.
okay.
Okay.
There we go. Oh, you took us off. Great.
Yes, please.
Thank you.
Welcome tonight, and tell us a little bit about what you feel needs to happen in the community to build equity.
Okay, well, I'll start because I'm probably the shortest speaker. So yeah, so I'm Beverly Jenkins, and I'm the CEO of our nonprofit organization called Refuge and Restoration. I also sit on the board for Elevate, which is located in McClure High School, and also on the board for One West Florissant along the corridor. And one of the things that that I think that we've encountered that it kind of hits home for us. One thing that we do believe is that equity is ownership. It's two things: ownership and then also access. We are also, our nonprofit purchased the Springwood Plaza, and one of the things that we greatly ran into is that an equitable piece that we understood real quickly for nonprofits is that when you're an indigenous leader or in the community, a lot of times when there's outside ownership, the equity piece is very hard to come by. And so we spent a lot of times, it almost became to us a civil rights issue to purchase property in our own community. And so equity for us became a target, a huge target. And so one of the things that we were asking ourselves is how do you combat that? We spent 7 years fighting for a piece of property that we know should belong to the community and to community work. And so I think one of the questions that we were asking too over this has been for quite some time is how does an organization that is a grassroots-led organization overcome the barriers that are in front of them as a nonprofit organization as well to build equity? And one thing that we saw is that it took us consistency, and then just the patience and the longevity to actually go the extra mile. Not every organization is going to do that. When an organization that's outside of that community inflates the price, one, so that's inequitable in and of itself. And so we had to make a decision as an organization. What is the community worth? And so we had to basically pay an outside entity cash for a building to make sure that it could actually be owned by leadership that is from the community. And so those are some of the insights or some of the things that we kind of grapple with or asking questions over and trying to see how to overcome those kind of barriers. So I'll let Ken speak.
Yeah. And some other, I think other things as I'm Pastor Ken Jenkins. I pastor, we have a church which we pastor and then a nonprofit. I am the chairman of the board of the nonprofit. So the repurposing of the old Snook Shopping Plaza, the goal is to create equitable access in these key areas, early childhood learning, banking and finance, also workforce development, entrepreneurship. And then we'll also have a health center there that will focus on addiction recovery, specifically the opioid crisis, and also behavioral health. All of those services will be co-located under one roof in the development of that center, which will be called R&R Marketplace. I think when we think about equity, we've been involved in a lot of conversations. And what we began to realize is that most people who discuss equity don't understand equity. Generally, the language comes from people where it sounds good and it looks good in the media. But as my wife was speaking concerning the acquisition of this property, we realized very quickly that equity requires sacrifice. Most people want to continue doing what they've been doing and calling it equity, but you can't do that. And so we even run into that as we have developed relationships in the corporate sector. There's a lot of discussion about equity, but the challenge for them to do things differently is scary for them. I mean, it's hard for them, one, to engage with indigenous leadership who are not known institutional establishments, even though, our project is sustainable. We've got a strong board. We raised a lot of capital, and we're able to purchase this building above market value because we just believed it had to be done. And so when we think of equity, sacrifice is key. And getting leadership here in St. Louis to understand that they have to be brave, they have to be willing to take risk and do things differently if there's really going to be equity. And I'll give you an example. You hear a lot right now in the media about utilizing this, the underserved workforce and trying to identify them. And so it's interesting that as pastors, we work with that population every single day. But a lot of people in the corporate sector are scared to talk to folk like us. So they talk about finding these folk when we know where everybody's at. I mean, we pastor them, we live in a community, we work with them. And so we're just really kind of pressing the envelope, challenging leadership here to think differently, to be brave, and understand that there's risk and sacrifice necessary if there's really going to be equity.
Could I ask, apart from the having to pay above market rate, what would you identify would have been the top 1 or 2 structural barriers that were the toughest to overcome?
Structural barriers as far as actually purchasing, or structural barriers to getting to that point?
I was going to say to sort of anywhere along the road, where could there have been structures that could have provided easier access for a unique potential provider of, you're going to be offering an awful lot of services that could be, frankly, collaborative with different county institutions in supporting some of the things we're trying to do with some of these unique folks. But what do you have to break down in order to get around the system?
Yeah.
Just curious if there's 1 or 2 that really stick out for you. And by the way, I think price is one of them, but I'm thinking structural besides that.
Yeah. So one that and I hope I'm answering this question correctly, but one of the things I think that we encountered as people who are not necessarily a known entity is relationship barriers. So that would be a structural barrier. So when you're not in the know, you really have a hard time breaking into. It's kind of like the, I guess like, the circle, the friendship circle, and the relationship circle. And so
Like the high school you went to.
Yeah. So everything here tends to be a little bit more invitational only.
Yeah.
And that goes for funding sources. It's invitational only. And we met that structural barrier. And then there's also the relationship barrier that if you don't know someone who knows someone, the number one question that we're asked a lot of times when we're even going for different grants or different things of that nature is, do you know so-and-so?
Yeah.
And that is an inequitable question just by nature, simply because we cannot get past that point. And if we do know them, they're not the funder. So what is it that we are to do with this name or this person or these people that you want us to? And so it almost feels like you have to have nothing wrong with people validating one another. Like that's we know that's part of this kind of like relational kind of like capital, right? Social capital. We get that. But at the same time, it doesn't open the door for people who may be like us, who are behind us.
Yeah.
And so that creates a barrier for them as well. And so I think that even us, just the one thing, the overcoming thing, most of the people who came together with us, even in the purchase of this property, which was really interesting, were not, and this is not an indictment statement, but they were from out of state. They were people who saw the need for what was taking place in our state, but were not from this area. And And that's something that we want to see differently. And that's the reason why we were so excited about what we're doing, because we see it as a bridge. Like, so we've been able to formulate, we have over 29 collaborative partners, but yet some of the partners that we've wanted to be like at the forefront of this, that relationship varies. So that's one of the structures. So just long story short, relationship barriers and invitation only kind of settings have created that kind of an inequitable position.
Hear you loud and clear. Who were your did you have cheerleaders in the county who were helpful for you?
Yeah, Dr. Sam
okay.
Page has been a big cheerleader. St. Louis Economic Development Partnership. Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, I want to say this too, just so you know, we're in a unique position. One, our faith has pushed us through this. Most people, to give an example, we know that to get to the table, start asking for grants and large sums of dollars, you have to have every I dot, every T crossed. But to give an example, we did it. So for instance, we have a strong board. We raised a lot of capital on our own, apart from grants and those things. We have a plan that was vetted by WashU, St. Louis University, some other large entities. We have a board that have a few CEOs on it here locally. So all the things they usually ask you, who's on your board? Have you raised any money? We did all of that and still couldn't get in. And so we imagine how tough it would be for people who didn't have all the stuff that we were able to put together over the course of those years. It's just that we're kind of like the widow woman in the scriptures. We just never gave up. We just kept knocking on doors and sharing the vision, because we were sure that this project was transformational and would bring access to real equity in our community. And so, those are real challenges here. And, I think, it's just challenging leaders to, step up and be brave and realize that we can change things here, but we can't keep doing things the same way.
Yeah. And I just want to say this too. So I really, we're thankful too for even what Dr. Page heard our story one time and immediately wrote a letter of endorsement for the work that we were doing. So very appreciative of that. Same thing with St. Louis Economic Development Partnership. It's just some of those doors, the funding doors is a little bit harder. Some of the other funding doors are a little bit, the corporate doors are a little bit more invitational only. And so those are the pieces. But I wanted to say this too. I was listening to Miss Warner, I believe. And what this is doing for us, or for me even personally right now, is hearing all the inequities across the board. Like there is like this, I appreciate it being able to hear about other other cultures, other people in this city having to figure this out. And so it gives us more of a sense of togetherness. So I just wanted to say I appreciate it hearing all of these different stories as well.
Well, I know Dr. Page has to go to another event, but I want to give him a chance to say a good hi to you, because you said his name a few times there.
Okay.
Oh, no,
I love
thank you.
Dr.
I remember you visiting my office. Gosh, it seems like over a year ago, maybe at the very beginning of the pandemic. And then, I remember the ceremony we had over the summer. But I'm thinking about the need for mentorship support for folks with dreams like you have. And now that you're making that transition, I would just ask you to help us understand what that mentorship looks like. I know SLU and WashU have active programs, but as Karen starts to make her list of structural barriers, and we talk about how to break that down, we may circle back to you all as an example of determination and ask you to help us build that system to make it a little easier for the folks that come behind you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're open to that. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Page. And pastors, I have another question for you. How important is it for government to recognize that information can be siloed, and we have to break those silos down and get information to the people? I'm sure if you look back on your experience, there's sometimes you say, I wish we would have known that a year ago, and maybe someone in the government could have pointed that out to us, so we could have done it this way instead of that way. And I think that frustration sometimes hinders a lot of people with very good community-oriented ideas, but they just don't necessarily know how to navigate things. Was that your experience? Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
I think to give you an example, like for instance, there's money available. We found that out. but you don't know it, right? And so, for instance, new market tax credits, a great tool to use in underserved communities, particularly in the area of redevelopment. But nobody ever heard of it. We were blessed to find out about it from a meeting I had a coffee with Rich McClure, who was leading the Ferguson Commission, and he asked me why weren't we using them, and I said I never heard of them,
Right.
and he looked at me pretty odd. He said, "Well, let me connect you to somebody with the St. Louis Economic Development Partnership." So we met them, and they walked us through the process, but it was just by chance. So
Nice.
I think usually in the community, particularly grassroots indigenous leaders and people who are doing grassroots things, have never heard of most of the funding sources and opportunities that may be available through our county. It's just not readily available.
Yeah. And I would just add to that too, that, that even when you start looking at I think one of the things that would have been I know it academically, I understand the PESTEL model, academically, but I think having what Dr. Page is talking about, that mentorship too, though, that expresses to us as an organization how we actually pull the political arena in, how we pull economics in, how we pull all of these different systems in place inside of our grassroots organization, and then give that information or tell that story to organizations that are interested in what it is that we're trying to bring to the community. I think that would also be a good bridge for organizations like ours.
Yeah.
I also think I want to thank you because I think you're unique and positive influencers in the community. I think we need more positive in the community, and I would like to help in any way I can. Different organizations get good messages out to the community, especially to the youth, and I really see you doing that. So, if there's any other questions from the committee, all right. Well, thank you very much, pastors.
Thank you so
Thank you all.
much.
Thank you all. Thank you all.
Our next speaker is Deborah Rice Carter on. Hi, Deborah. Come on, unmute yourself.
Hello, hello, everybody. So,
Hello.
so I am Deborah Rice Carter, and I work for a Red Circle. So some of the things that the pastors are talking about a Red Circle are in the process of doing also, as far as the community market. We are trying to raise money to, we already have the building site already. We need $100,000. And we're working hard to try to raise money and raise awareness of how it is imperative that we have these resources for people to access healthy food and also make our community healthy through community engagement efforts and everything. We're doing everything. I am a Ferguson resident. I am a volunteer. I've been volunteering in the community for about 20 years. I am a Kinloch descendant. I live close to Kinloch. And I was on a meeting last night talking to Mr. Page about the Kinloch Park restoration. I'm so glad that that is going forward to give the people in Kinlochs some some confidence that their community is coming back. I live a block away from Kinloch. My husband and I both are Kinloch people. So we're never gonna lose Kinloch in our mind and trying to help Kinloch. I am on the Senior Citizens Board for Ferguson. I'm also on the Ferguson Farmers Market Board. I am also a chairperson for the West Ferguson Neighbors. So I am very involved in everything. And I also work for Erica Brooks at a Red Circle.
And I'm exhausted just hearing all of that.
Yeah, I just started working for Erica in January. I worked for Earth Dance for 5 years. So I'm working for Molly Rockerman. So I'm into sustainability, teaching sustainable practices to our community so we can be able to sustain and, enrich ourselves in our own community. We are now taking fellowship applicants to teach them growing food and entrepreneurship and, all the way through for 9 months I'm going to have 6 people between the age of 19 and 26, teaching them, soft skills, just anything that they need to know to get out into the world and be able to survive, without, depending on government funding or depending on your own self. We're tired of all this government funded stuff. We're trying to get ourselves together so we can be in our own space, taking care of our own community. So that's what I'm all about, just doing things for the community. And equity means community, it means ownership, it means, health, it means everything for our people. I'm just so involved in everything, as you all can see, and I talk a lot. So
That's all
if I'm
right.
talking too much, you could stop me.
Could
But I'm just so invested in this community.
Well, Ms.
I don't know
Carter,
what else I
let
can
me
say.
let me
could
shift
I
gears.
ask you a quick question?
Okay.
You just said something that stuck with me. You said equity needs community. Could I ask you,
Means
could you say a
community.
little bit more about that? I'm intrigued by that, the way you say it.
Okay, so I think that the community itself can build its own equity if they are putting everything into the community. So that's what I say when I mean equity means building the community, everybody helping each other to make this community a better community to live in for our children. Uh, that's what I think equity means. And ownership, you have to own, you have to be out here trying to work and fight for what's right. And it all ties into having your own. And, so I'm really passionate about what I do. So, you have, like I said, you might have to stop me from talking, but
Thank you
yeah,
for
so
talking,
you
Ms.
have any
Carter.
questions? Any
Yeah, I have
questions?
a question. I have a question, Ms. Carter.
I
I want to touch on food inequity, and I want to
Mhm.
talk about, is there food inequity you've experienced in North County? Are foods different at different places? Are grocery stores
Oh,
always having the
most
same
certainly.
quality of foods at different places? Let's have a real discussion here about food inequity and what needs to be said and where it is. So where do
Okay.
you find food inequity?
Okay. So I'm a grower. I grow stuff in my yard. Okay. I've been doing that for 15 years. So I'm never gonna be hungry. Okay. So as long as you're never hungry, you grow your own food, you can, you never be hungry. So that's one way of, to
Yeah.
build equity, for your family.
Mhm.
Here in this community, we do not have uh the healthiest food to get to, right?
Mhm.
We've got certain stores, conglomerate grocery stores selling unhealthy food. As soon as you walk in the door, 90% of the stuff in the store is no good for you. So, from there, you have to know where your food is coming from. If you're in your community growing the food, or you're getting it from, around these farmers, all these urban farmers around, which we're trying to build equity in food, for our community. So I've touched bases with all urban farmers in the area, and we all support each other in trying to address this food insecurity that we have out here in North County.
have a question.
Go ahead,
Yes.
man.
Comment. Hi, Miss Carter. Yes,
Hello.
this is Ethel Bindum,
Yeah,
and
I know you, Ethel.
yes, that's right. We have at the Office of Community
Yeah,
Engagement has beginning roots with Red Circle and
right.
uh,
And recast. I'm a recast person, and I'm a neighborhood leader
absolutely.
fellows. Yeah.
Absolutely. So I'm just happy to hear that. And then Earth Dance. I think that what Kitty was talking about, Earth Dance as a fresh food source and
Mhm.
where it's located, is just really was a surprise to me when we were able to become a part of that and learn a little bit about some of the things that the growing that was taking place in North County. So yeah,
Yes.
I'm just glad.
So we at Red Circle, we have 3 gardens. Well, 2 operational. One is a teaching garden. And we have a community market also. So the garden is at 351 not South Chamber, 351 Chambers. And then we have one on the outside of Jennings, no, that's Pine Line. It's probably Goodfellow and Aldermont, little street. If you come out from Goodfellow, you turn right. So it's on the borderline. Both of those are teaching gardens, and we teach from those gardens. So we do a lot of stuff. We teach art. We teach soft skills, gardening. We advocate for. I'm a global warming advocate. Eco. I'm on the eco team, Ferguson eco team. So I try to stay involved with everything, and whatever I learn, I'm gonna try to teach it to somebody else. I'm not gonna keep it inside of me. I'm just gonna pass it on, and maybe that'll help somebody else.
If I was starting out and I had an appropriate sized plot of land in order to start a starter garden,
Mm-hmm.
how much land do I need from your perspective, and how much is my initial investment going to be? At a basic level, nothing fancy, but I want to get started. How much should I expect to spend?
So it depends on how you're gonna grow it. If you're gonna do pots, or if you say land, how much land? Are you doing it for your family, or how big is your family? You have to take all this in consideration.
Yeah.
Once you get started, it depends on how your soil is. It's just so many different things that goes into trying to grow healthy food. As the soil is the thing, right? The soil, you have to get that tested. Make sure you got the proper balance of nutrients, and if not, you're gonna have to put the nutrients in, and it's just a whole lot. If you start out in pots, it's a little bit easier, and you don't have to do as much work. But if you need help with that, you could always ask me. And I do know people that will come and help. Earth Dance has a program. They I don't know where you live at, but they have a free program teaching people in 5 municipalities. They have spring training, and they teach them basic garden skills. I think it lasts about 6 weeks, and it's free.
I guess I'm thinking about the sort of the microeconomic piece, which, how we build that pyramid sort of the people who can educate, or it's really a top down, right? You're really trying to find the people who can educate. How many people can they touch? How many of those people can start a garden? What is the universe of support they need to, I mean, it's pretty complex. You're already going into some science there when you're talking about soil culture and stuff like that. So,
Yeah.
It gets pretty serious pretty fast. And so having
Yeah.
that support, and that structure is going to be pretty important. It's not just going to be about the dollars you're going to spend.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and Karen, one of the things I think Deborah may not have remembered to mention is that you need a good group of volunteers.
Yes, you do. If you started garden, you definitely have to, because that's what's going on here around. And at Ferguson, we have all these community gardens, and nobody taking care of them. So they just go to waste. And that's just a waste of money, But yeah, if you have to have people that are dedicated to running it and keeping it up. Yeah.
Okay.
Any more questions from any of the commissioners? All
I
right,
can't
thank you,
wait for
Ms.
spring. I'm gonna plant stuff.
I got my pepper plants going.
You do?
Oh yeah.
Oh,
I have grown pepper
okay.
plants.
I just wanted to say to you that we love what you do, Deborah. We love Erica. We love a red circle. So
Thank you.
Yeah. Erica actually sits also on our community advisory board. So
Yeah.
very, very
She
thankful.
does a lot. Yeah. She hired me to take some of the heat off of her, I think.
Yeah.
I was getting ready to sit back and just not do anything, because I retired 4 years ago. And when I left Earth Dance, I was just like, I'm just gonna, because I'm an entrepreneur myself. I do all kinds of stuff. And Erica, well, can you come and work for me? I said, well, okay, but I'm gonna work for a couple more years, and then I'll probably be done.
That's great.
Well, thank you, Ms. Carter. Doesn't sound like you retired much at all.
I know, it got busier.
Yeah, and what I would like to say is that that with as much food insecurity that exists within some parts of St. Louis County, what Erica and Deborah and them are doing is so very, very vital, and especially access to fresh
Right.
food.
Right.
Yeah,
That's right.
And
that's equity. That's
that
equity.
absolutely
Right.
is equity.
Yes.
And as we have new immigrants or refugees coming into the area, there are different food options they will need because their food
Definitely.
options are different, and they will need to be communicated to in the language they understand how to get those proper food options. So it all does tie it in to build equity. It's building the base resources all people need to build a meritocracy in St. Louis County, and that's what we want to go for. So
Definitely.
thank you for that, Miss Carter. Up next, we're going to have Ben Phillips talk with us a little bit about Ben. I've worked with Ben for a moment here, but Ben is going to take us through history some because I'll let him talk about some of his historical housing and uh, where he is in the future and what he thinks of build equity. Hey, Ben, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you for inviting me. Miss Carter's a tough act to follow, I'm going to tell you, along with both pastors. My father was a great gardener, and he retired, and I had about 2 acres of land, and he would take care of it by himself. But what I didn't know, that every Thursday he would open up my land to people to come in and just get vegetables and fruits and stuff, and without charge. And I didn't find this out until I was at his funeral, and there was testimony about it. So I can't grow a tomato in one of those sacks that you hang and they grow tomatoes. I couldn't grow tomatoes in, but my father was a great gardener. So I respect what she's doing, also what the pastors are doing. My story, I guess the most significant thing that I've done was I was the lone plaintiff who filed lawsuit against the federal government for the chemical poisoning of Pruitt-Igoe housing development. That's where I grew up, and that was my formative years from the age of 5 to 17. And I watched the stuff go on. Didn't know anything about it until I read about this young lady, Dr. Martino, who and I covered it. But in working with Kenny, what brought me and Kenny together, me and a couple other guys formed a group called Bound Together. And we were going through the history of the slave markets in St. Louis City. And when the county did the thing on Dorset Road about the Packers and stuff, we decided that would be a good idea. And so we started working on it, uncovering slave masters in the city of St. Louis. And there were quite a few, and it was really hidden. I mean, you really have to dig deep to find out about these people. And some of the most notable people in the history of St. Louis that had slaves, and you would not know them. I mean, you go into the halls of the cathedral and look up at the mural in the city. We had some up there in the city, the botanical, not botanical, botanical building of the cathedral, basilica. That's what I want to say, basilica. But we ran across Kenny. I can't remember how we got together, but we started working with Kenny. He gave us a lot of guidance. He gave us a lot of information. We brought some information to the table. We were doing primarily the city of St. Louis. So with Kenny, we ended up with St. Louis County. So we pretty much got a lot of things covered. There's a lot of information that will be coming out. And one of them was not how they were building equity in the communities. My thing is I always look for where are the minorities, the black, the brown, the female, the foreigners in this when money is being distributed or passed around. I'm a retired administrator from the city of St. Louis. I worked for the city for 25 years, and I've worked in various departments. I kind of did some oversight at the Community Development Agency for the city of St. Louis. I know Ms. Bynum from those years with the city. And she's always been a great person. We know a lot of people in common. I want to say my history consists of where are the people who need it. I was a lobbyist for the city of St. Louis for a while, and I used to go to HUD meetings, and the money was distributed not by need. It was more by who wanted it, who had the most power. In certain parts of the city, um, and I would say there's both north and south. There's pockets in the city of St. Louis, and there's pockets in St. Louis County that you would think that some of those people would have a little more than what they got, or a little less than what they have. So I'm here basically. This is my first meeting, and I'm here basically to kind of like find out more about. I timed in on a couple of them. We had some technical problems where we couldn't get it off the ground. But give a little background on me. Uh, I served on the judicial committee for St. Louis City 22nd Circuit for about 7 years, and I think there were 14 or 15 judges, and most of them are current judges from state all the way up to U.S. judges who had come through my panels and are successful serving as judges now at the state and the federal level. Like I said, I'm part of, there's a documentary on the poisoning of the Pruitt-Igoe development that I was deeply involved in. That's currently going through this. It was here in St. Louis in November, and now I think it's up in Oliver, and it's been over in Ghana, showing some of the devastation and negative impact it had on citizens of the city of St. Louis, not just St. Louis City around Pruitt-Igoe, but also St. Louis County. Everybody needs to know that. People think that, oh, that's just a project area. Well, when you put chemicals in the air, there is no side rails for this stuff. This stuff goes everywhere. And so we're trying to bring that to the attention of people, the federal government as well. I've served 2 mayors in the city of St. Louis. I wish I could serve Dr. Page, but I'm not in the. I moved out of the county in July of last year, so he can't put me on anything. He probably don't. I'm like Miss Carter. I talk a lot, Miss Carter, so you have to you can understand what I'm saying. I've done a lot. I'm involved with a lot of things. Peace and Justice Committees for the Catholic Church. I'm an elder at my parish council. Probably do too many things. Need to let some other people do some things. But I'm here more as a person who I can contribute. I don't hold a position right now. I'm basically retired, so I do a lot of leg work, and I'm at Kenny's beckoning call for anything he needs me to.
Well, Ben, let me.
If I could
let
say,
me ask
you raised something for me though. I'm trying to listen very carefully. But you're talking about a history a lot of folks don't know about, and I don't know that you can even approach. I mean, and we're trying to create this. I'm not sure what we're calling it yet. Whether it's a document, whether it becomes a more online resource that has different moving parts, could have videos, has photographs, has interactive capacities, because I think that's what we need to do to reach people nowadays. But how few people, I imagine, understand the history that you've lived, and this documentary. I mean, Pruitt-Igoe, for a lot of folks, it's a history they don't even, a certain generation, if I may, of folks. And so learning the history should be a piece of coming to equity and being able to be a part of equitable solutions. You can't do it if you don't know the history. And so I think maybe it's incumbent on us to highlight as much as we can key pieces of regional history that will really demonstrate some of the greatest inequities, and maybe there isn't one as significant as Pruitt-Igoe in housing, in economic development, in environmental justice, in urban impacts, in education, in violence and crime, and just how relationships have. I mean, it encompasses so much.
Yeah, I think you Pruitt-Igoe as an example of injustice done to people, environmentalist injustice done to people, opens the door that environmental injustice happens. that there's dumping, illegal dumping done in some communities, and those communities are often poor communities of color
Sure.
that have people drop trash or drop. When we think of environmental dumping, we often think about the big company that dumps trucks, but that's not always what happens. Sometimes it might be just that local small company that has something toxic that they don't want to dispose of the correct way, so they think of where can they dump it, and they dump it sometimes in neighborhoods where the poor, who they think cannot respond to them, or cannot call them out on justice, and they think they can get away with it. Those areas end up looking like North County black neighborhoods often. And so that's what I wanted the Ben on to talk to, just say, you know, his experience with Pruitt Igoe was very real. And Pruitt Igoe is internationally known as a test case for things that have gone bad with public housing. Uh, so that's something I think we should know our history. One, and the second thing is we should know that dumping in poor communities, putting toxic chemicals, are done by various bad actors. It's not always the big corporation. Sometimes it's a little shop that just doesn't want to dispose of their chemicals the right way. So they think if we can just throw that over here and no one to know, they won't catch it. There's been numerous members of county council and St. Louis County Council who has purposely done cleanups because people have thrown stuff in their district. And that's a problem. That's inequitable, and that's something we need to start making mechanisms to affect.
If I could, I just wanted to say hello to Mr. Phillips. Glad to hear about the work that you're doing. If I understand my history right about Pruitt Igoe, the release of the chemicals was a calculated release, and it was done in a manner that that was time sensitive and all of the like. So I'm just glad to hear about the documentary coming forth and this issue being put forth.
I'm sorry, I haven't heard it. What's the name of the documentary?
The documentary is named Target St. Louis, Volume 1. It was held at Washington University's Brown Hall, November 5th, 2021. Now, I'm in the process as we speak. In fact, I've talked with some people today. I'm attempting to bring the documentary back to St. Louis. The producer, director has agreed with that. We were going to do it a lot sooner, but with COVID and things going on, it's kind of hands tied.
Yeah.
We wanted to put it out again for a couple of showings in February for Black History Month, but I've told the director, say, anytime we can see this, get it here, we need it. Black history would have been fine, but if we don't get it here till August, people need to see this. He was calculating the same people who did the Tuskegee syphilis experiments, the same people who did the Manhattan Project were the same people who were doing the Pruitt Igoe deal. People don't know that.
I didn't do that.
Okay, that's how deep it was. They supposedly they kind of sidestepped the city government, told it was a defensive mechanism. They put this, it's called cadmium sulfate, and they were putting this stuff up in the air. A lot of children was playing and thinking it was bug spray, but it was just chemical. It was told to the people of the leadership of St. Louis that it was for, this was during the Cold War, what's going on right now with Russia, that it was being used because you put this mist in the air, it was a white mist, that it was seal or hide certain strikes that the Russians could make. They couldn't strike the art museum because they couldn't see it, put this stuff up in the air. Well, we found out that we uncovered this. I had the same, one of my primary lawyers was a guy named Ronnie Penton, who was the primary defendant lawyer for the Horizon explosion down in the Gulf of Mexico. The blew up, the oil rig blew up, killed all those people. Yeah, his name was Ronnie Penton. We found out that it was really an offensive weapon. They were using Pruitt Igoe buildings because it was similar to Moscow and Leningrad and St. Peter's. And this chemical was actually going up and coming down and filtering into the actual buildings. It was cancer. It had cancer-producing cells in it. And what the United States was going to do, our good government, they were going to drop it on Russia and basically kill the people inside these buildings without destroying the buildings. It just it would enter and kill them. That's
I am
what's going
almost not
on.
ready to digest what you just said.
Oh my God. You know, and the reason I got involved was because I just had a surgery on my ear. I can't hear in my left ear. And we didn't know what it was. My mom had just died of cancer, and for years, everybody who died, I went to film from Port-Igo, died of some type of cancer. And so when I saw Lisa Martino, I just gave her a call, said, hey, look, what's going on here? And you know, she had got shut out. She went to Stanford University. When they found out what she was doing research, they came in and literally took all her notes from her, University of Stanford. And a lot of big corporations around here funded that. And when we went to court, we had all our findings, and a lot of findings. And when we got to discovery, the federal judge in St. Louis would not let my attorneys present it in court. So the case never went to court, which I think he made a mistake, because if it didn't go to court, it's not double jeopardy if you come back. And that's what we're attempting to do. And you know, it's terrible. It's worse than the water thing up in Gary, Indiana. Flint, Michigan.
Oh, in Flint.
Well,
Mr.
it is
Phillips?
also honestly our history. So who's Ms. Carter, do you have a question?
Yeah, I wanted to ask Mr. Phillips. So some of my people my daddy's side of the family lived in Pruitt-Igoe. I'm sure, and my aunt, Bernard Gay and Charles Gay, and I think she was a housing supervisor or something for HUD or something for a while. Also, the Boykins, but that I've never heard that story before. That's devastating. So that means both sides of my families were disappropriated, like in Kinloch, my mother's side, and also my father's side in the city. So I'm like a double whammy here, you know. I'm glad you brought that up. I really want to see that movie.
I will let you know. If we get it here, I got the director, so he'll come here and we would do a question and answer afterwards. So I might need some of y'all's help so we can find a venue eventually that we can have it in, because he's from the director, producer is actually from St. Louis. Found out that his grandmother lived in Pruitt-Igoe, and I knew her from a job related situation where we both worked for the city at the same time. But it's something worth, I mean, it's terrible what happened. And we have a lot of leadership in the county government know about it, and a lot of them were able to attend the session.
And in today's politically charged environment, a lot of people might not want us to tell historically accurate lessons. They might
Right.
call it theory or stuff like that. But what happened in Pruitt-Igoe is factual. It did happen, and certain people were targeted for reasons that they didn't believe those people had the power to fight back. It was a combination of racism and classism, and we just need to tell the truth about it. And that's why this movie needs to be seen by more and more people. Yeah.
Pruitt-Igoe was torn down almost 50 years ago.
True.
And they have one structure that is built on that site, and that's that site that Paul McKee, that Homer G. Phillips site. Other than that, you have not seen anything built on that property. When I was in the mayor's office, we had a group wanted to build a small, almost like a Top Golf on that property. And I went all the way, HUD stepped in and said, you can't do it. And I asked why. They said, because we got 30-foot foundation. No, it's something in the dirt. It's something in the dirt. That radiation and poison is in the soil. That's why they would let us do it.
Yeah, it's contaminated.
Well, Ben, thank you very much for that. Any more questions for Ben? All right. Well, thank you very much for it, Ben, and we will stay in touch because I'll get back in touch with you soon.
Thank you.
Is Stephen Moore there? Is Stephen Moore on the call? Can he be promoted up if he's on?
Peter, are we missing anybody? No? Okay.
Nope. Okay. Let's see. Was there anybody who didn't have a chance to speak tonight that's here on the panelist list?
Just appreciate everybody's participation. Thank you. More learning tonight. These listening sessions have just been fascinating because as this thing starts to take shape, it's because of these unique stories that have come up and kind of just unusual, just earnest, sincere thinking from people's hearts, and those are the things that are going to end up making this plan, this equity approach, I hope valuable, and flexible,
Let me
living,
do some
breathing.
shop. Let me do a little shop details. Once again, I want to reiterate to the public that if you didn't have a chance to speak tonight, or if you know someone who would be very good public speaker or have good input for us, they can send either a letter or an email or video to the equity plan at stlouiscountymo.gov. And we will process that input from them there. But we always want to give people every chance they can to give us some input. Next month on March 30th, Wednesday, March 30th at 6:30, we'll have our next installment of the equity plan meetings, and that is a welcoming plan as equity. That meeting will be about, does St. Louis County need to make a welcoming plan for people coming into the area? And what would a welcoming plan look like? And how can we make sure that that builds and promotes equity, the kind of equity we want to see in St. Louis County? I'd like to thank the members of the HRC, especially thank Chairwoman Karen for being here tonight. I'd like to thank Theta for being help setting all this up tonight. But most of all, I would like to thank you members of the community that are both invested and care about our community. It's by working together that we can get things done, because we are one St. Louis County, diverse, different. We have different backgrounds, different educational levels, and a lot of difference, but we are still one county. And together, united, we can make a lot of things better for ourselves. But we have to have some of the critical conversations, and we have to point out where things are inequitable. And sometimes those conversations are uncomfortable, but it's the only way you can truly grow. With that, if there's no other, I think we can go ahead and close down tonight. Karen, you fine with taking us home?
Stay warm and stay safe, huh, Ethel?
That's my plan.
All right.
That's
Be
my
safe,
plan.
everybody. Have a good night.
No,
Thank
y'all.
you
Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate you all.
Bye.
Bye.
Good night.